Welcome to the Simplified Dentistry podcast. Join us as we discuss clinical, operational, and financial aspects of your practice, help you enjoy life, and dare to simplify dentistry.
Welcome back to the Simplified Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Mustafa Shakan, along with my co-host, Dr. Mortaza Shakan. We want to welcome today's guest, Dr. Richard Rosenblatt. Dr. Rosenblatt presently owns a practice in Lake Bluff, Illinois, focusing on CAD CAM and digital dentistry. He is part of the faculty for CDOCS since 2008 and has been an alpha and beta tester for multiple dental companies. He's a basic trainer for Patterson Dental and is now also a clinical leader for Imagen Dental Partners. We'd like to thank our sponsor, NSK Dental. Founded in 1930, NSK is the world's largest manufacturer of rotary instruments for the dental professional, which includes air-driven and electric handpieces, specialty handpieces, electric motors, and hygiene maintenance systems. NSK is passionate about creating innovative products that deliver outstanding service and value. Almost all parts are manufactured in-house to guarantee the highest precision, reliability, and performance. NSK is the only handpiece that I've ever used in my office. Please visit nskdental.com for more information. Welcome, Rich. Thank you for joining us today. We're pleased to have you with us, and love to just kind of hear a little bit about you, a little bit about your journey.
Awesome to be on the podcast. I think you guys are doing a terrific job with your page and everything about this podcast. I've watched a bunch of them since you've done them, so it's been great. So thank you for having me on. Thanks. It means a lot. I appreciate that. About me, let's see. I'm a 55-year-old dentist who lives in the northern suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm East Coast at heart. I'll be a Jersey kid till I die, although I've lived here probably almost as long in Illinois as I have from New Jersey, but you just I can't shake the accent or my affinity for the F word. Those two things. So, and my team always tells me that, their family asks, why do you curse so much now? They're like, it's my doctor. He doesn't even know he does it. And so my apologies on that. I'll try to keep it clean for the podcast, obviously. And,
you don't have to. Oh, no. I'm right there with you. So
you're good with the B, you're good with the B button. Okay, perfect. Right. So, I'm a second generation dentist. My dad was a dentist and we never worked together, but I did, but at 8 years old, I kind of thought I wanted to do ortho, and that was my dream until I got into dental school and then tried to bend wires on the first day of dental school. That didn't go so well. I basically threw my model across the room, and I was like, okay, I guess the general practitioner is going to be what I'm going to be. And so here I am. And since then, moved out here in 99, end of 99, was an associate for 10 years for the most incredible mentor I maybe have ever had for me. Terrific dentist, ran a big practice, very tech forward back even in 99. He was all digital x-rays, all digital charts that you didn't see that a lot in 99, intraoral cameras in every room. And he really helped me to understand the art of, having tech and letting that set the standard for your practice. The other thing he taught me was how to be a mentor. I really learned, I learned a lot from others down the way, but he was the first one. He was the most selfless guy when it came to sending me to CE and doing things. And it was a big, busy practice. And I said to him one day, I'm like, you're sending me to all this stuff. We didn't even have a contract. We were like handshake kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I said, what happens if I decide, like I was producing 900, like I was producing a lot of money for him a year. And I said, what happens if I decide to open up next door? And he goes, Rich, and this is before there was internet marketing and things like that. He said, open up the Yellow Pages for me. And I'm like, Yellow, and post half the people, what the hell's the Yellow Pages? Right. But we're in downtown Chicago, and I open up page 1 of the Yellow Pages in dental, and he's got a double truck ad, and he goes, it's a $14,000 a month ad. We get 100 new patients a month. You could move next door. It wouldn't even feel it. He said, like, my goal is to get you to be a great dentist. Hopefully, great dentist with me for the long haul. And if it doesn't work out, at least you'll go out and be a great dentist, and you've done great dentistry for me. He goes, I promise you, whatever you're going to learn in those classes, I'm going to make way more from it than you will in the short term. So he goes, and so he did. And so even now, as somebody who has a bunch of associates, that's how I live my life with my team, is just getting them to be great, getting them to love dentistry and train them up the right way. And, I always speak into existence that they're going to take over from me, but Whether they do or don't, that's not my why. My why is just to, be a great mentor, just like I was, and paying that forward.
Yeah, I think that's interesting what you say. We had one of our first podcasts was with Kira Dent, who I think is a great consultant. And one thing that she said is, understand your why. Understand your why in dentistry. So is that your why? Is being a mentor, giving back, paying it forward, or is your why to excel at digital dentistry, or is it all of it?
No, you know what? I know my why isn't money. Like I've never been driven by money in my life, so that definitively is not my why. What my why now, what comes from how hard we all work and do what we do, great. It's a side effect of that, and that's fine. But I've never been driven 1 second of one day by what I earn in my practice or what I earn in lecturing or any of that stuff. It just isn't. Um, but I think my why, my love language is community. My love language is like helping other. I love it. It's something that I've loved doing with my team. I've loved, and I'm not talking just even my dentist is inspiring. I have one assistant, my chairside lead assistant is just took her hygiene boards, and my goal is, I want her to get into hygiene school and help her there. I have another of my lead assistants who is applying to dental school, and she's going to be an outstanding dentist, and just being mentors to those kind of people. And, and even on the teaching side of things, it's that those random emails that you get from people talking about what kind of impact you've made on their practice, and doing that is like jet fuel to me. It just hits me in such a spot. It's such a rush to feel like something that I'm so passionate about and whatever I'm teaching about resonated with at least one person sitting on the other side of that room from me, having to listen to this voice for 2 days. I mean, that's only right. You get, I don't know. I think that's more my why.
Sure.
I love doing this. I really love doing what we do.
Was that kind of what got you into the, obviously wanting to contribute? Is that what got you into the CDOCS world, or was there a different path into that?
So I tell this, and like Samir, I was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and did a great job as he always does. And when I talk about like Mount Rushmore of mentors for me, he is my Mount Rushmore for sure. Sam is giving me more opportunity than anyone that I know, and now that I'm at the position that I'm at and doing this for 18 years, I try to do the same thing to the like our visiting faculty, and even some of the faculty that's above me now. I trained a lot of them, and so getting them to be better than me is always I don't care about being the best. I just want people to love this as much as I do, because that's what puts things in great hands. And so when I joined CDOCS, Sam asked me to join CDOCS back in 2008. So I'm 18 years this year with them. And we all met on Dental Town. I mean, that's how a lot of us all started out back in the day. And so myself, Sam, Todd Ehrlich, rest in peace, Armin, Scrammy, Flem, like we were the ones putting out cases and getting like arrows shot at us every day of like how crappy a dentist we were, and this dentistry looks like temps. And
I hear you.
We saw that beyond what the software was limiting us to. We just realized that this is where it's going. And so when Sam started CDOCS and was like, hey, I want you to we're going to start a faculty with me and Scrammy and Flem, Pete Cardell, a couple of others that are no longer kind of really in the game that way. That was kind of how I got into it. And at that point, I had just bought my practice in 2007. It was right before the stock market crash of 2007. So I went in, I had no money. I spent all the money I had. I'm a self-made guy. I didn't get help from my family in that way. So, and I was hemorrhaging money. I mean, I thought I could have gone bankrupt 4 or 5 times. I mean, I was able to pay the team, had to kick some bills down the road a little bit. So I read these posts all the time about these people who struggle, and then they see people like us doing these podcasts and doing it. I want everyone to know out there, and I'm just talking frankly, I mean, what we do is hard. We're not business people. I'm tooth mechanic. I drill a hole in your head and fill it up. I'm more of a pothole filler than I am
ditch
diggers. Educated ditch diggers.
Yeah, for sure. But I've learned a lot about being a leader. I've learned over time about being a business guy, but I didn't know how to do that. That was not what I did. And so when this kind of fell in my lap, and there was not a salary, by the way, for a faculty member. Sam basically said, I don't want to be on the road anymore, and be careful what you wish for. I'm going to keep you really busy because I don't want to travel on the road. And he made me his road donkey for like, 5 years. And I took anything he
Mhm.
would give me because I was going under. And and I didn't, I mean, I thought I wanted to educate. I just was never formally trained like most of us. And I just kind of learned it on as we did it. And that was kind of how CDOCS kind of happened, out of desperation, and being somebody who loved the digital and was into the kind of social media stuff. Like, I guess you can call Dental Town social media
Sure.
before
Yeah.
social media, so I was just like, wow, there's a lot of people, and I'll put some stuff out there, and good or bad, let's see what happens. And it was fun, I enjoyed it.
It's funny you say that, about, posting cases and getting arrows shot at you. I tend to post the majority of the clinical cases for our group, and, I'll post things out there just to see what people say. And, it's amazing the arrows people will shoot at you, but then you'll be like, all right, I'm gonna post this one out there because I know this is an all-star case, and nobody will say a word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yep.
social media is amazing,
I hate
Yeah.
it. I hate it. I mean, I don't even go, like, and this is no disrespect to Dental Town, but it just became pretty toxic, and I just got
Yeah.
tired of the fighting. So it's when you meet me as a person, like, I'm very sarcastic and snarky and, love to bust balls. It's like one of my favorite things to do. It's the Jersey in me. But
Mhm.
online, that is not sort of my mentality. I'm very much more like helpful, because I hate the trolls. I hate all that crap. If I'm going to sit there and spend the time to do something, I'm going to try to make it meaningful just for myself first and foremost. I don't want to waste my time, but I don't want to waste anybody else's who wants to spend 5 minutes reading something that I may have wrote that can hopefully help them in down the line.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we did what we did with starting Simplify, is you do look at a lot of these things and you're like, I just don't want that toxic environment. I don't
Yeah.
want people talking shit about you for this, that, and the other, and then I don't want your politics coming
No,
into
that was
this.
the biggest thing that we started when we talked about it from the beginning. Is like, leave that at home, or you won't be a part of this.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Yeah.
you'll laugh that you say that, because like I teach the 90-minute crown course at CDOCS. That's kind of me and Shivy teaches the West Coast and I do the East Coast. And the last topic is bonding. So we're talking about how to bond in all these restorations that we teach out of
Yeah.
Mill for the last 2 days. And I tell everybody, the bonding slide comes up, it says bonding, and I'm like, all right, here we go, everybody. I said, there's 4 topics I don't talk about in public. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about occlusion, and I don't talk about bonding, because we're going to fight. Okay. So
that makes a
that,
lot of
Yeah.
sense.
So is that where your focus is on at CDOCS now? Is that course? Or are you doing more stuff with
I am
them?
doing.
How's it evolved for you?
I am doing more, and mainly because Dan Butterman, who took over Sam's role, he became faculty chair when Samir came
Sure.
over to Imagen.
Yeah.
And Dan is just outstanding. And he really, besides being an all-world kind of beta tester kind of a guy, and he's just got great relationships with everyone behind the scenes and all of the people. But he's just got a good even head on him, and he's a solid choice. So, and then January 1, he got promoted to the chief dental officer, Spear. So
Yeah.
with that job comes, I mean, like, we're really, myself, him, Mina, who I know is going to be on Super Bowl, which thanks for inflating his head just that much more.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just wait till you see the outfit.
Listen, I've been in his closet. I know what some of those outfits look like. Scary as hell. So, yeah, he's got glow in the dark sneakers and track suits and crazy stuff. So yeah, we're a little too close of friends. So, but me, him, Flem, we're so close. We've been teaching together for so long that there's this brother and sisterhood. And Dan, you can see as we're talking about all the stuff that's kind of hitting him in the face in this position, I know he can't do the same amount of stuff. So I actually stepped up last year to take level 3 and 4, which is our implant and our anterior aesthetic,
Yeah.
4-unit anterior aesthetic kind of stuff. So I took that so Dan could get a little breather and they could launch PS2, which was him, Shivy, and Mina. And then from there, I'm like, well, I already spent the time studying and making sure that I know the slide decks and stuff to bring, I didn't want the level of education to drop with me there. So and it hasn't. It's been really great. So now I think Dan feels pretty good, and we're starting to build up the bullpen. So I'd like to stay there if I could, because my schedule between that and my office and mentoring my team and all the stuff I'm doing with Imagen, it just doesn't leave a lot of free time in my world.
Kind of talking about Imagen. When we talked, several weeks ago, you talked about, I'm 54, you're 55. I'm at kind of a similar place to you where you were back before you jumped into Imagen. The whatever, the $1.5 million practice, 4 ops,
Yep.
that sort of stuff. What led you to Imagen from that point in time? Yeah.
Well, what led me to them was it was an interesting start, because I remember, Imtiaz Manji's been, somebody who's been a great influence on me, and a good mentor also, and just has taken me under his wing, early on in the day. I mean, I remember he can be a pretty scary guy when he wants to be, at least intimidating, not scary. And when I met him, we were talking, lecturing, and he puts his arm around me. He goes, I don't know what the F you're doing in this room. It was like Sam and Scrammy and all of them. He goes, and I'm about to give you like how to lecture and do all this. He goes, I'm doing this because Sam's speaking for you. And I love Sam. And if Sam trusts you, I trust you. And that was 8, 7, whatever many years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just, and he has been such a great mentor to me. And he had heard one of my good friends had sold his practice to a DSO. And he's one of the most brilliant, like leadership and owner minds that I've ever met in dental. Like, he just gets numbers and P&Ls and systems like better than anyone. And so when he did it, I was like, well, if he's doing it, I should probably look into this. It probably makes sense. I've always done that with my life, with finding people better than me, latching on the coattails and riding that pony as long as they don't kick me off, I mean, poor Sam. I mean, his shirts are so much longer from me hanging off the back of them, for all these years. And so,
You said that has something to do with your height.
that's
what
well,
he told me.
it would be his collar. It would be the collar drag down, but I can't reach up that high, so I gotta grab like his pockets or the back part of his shirt. So the and so I started to look into it, and I was looking into a couple of different places, including this guy and none of them made sense to me, because it was like, I'm giving away everything, and then I got to stay there for a bunch of years, and I just didn't get that kind of shared mentality of like what being a partner was. So I had skin in the game. And then Kiaz said to me, I can't tell you anything other than do not sign anything with anybody, and we're gonna have a talk in January. And in January of 2020, before COVID, we had about 15 of us that went out to this envisioning session, and he brought out some trusted people, both on the Seric and Spear side, that, because it was Michael Oggins from Sorona and Rezwan Manji from the president of Spear. And they kind of brought in people that had helped both of their tasks to grow their businesses. And that was, when those people, when I'm running around 40 weekends a year, making the likes of Samir and Rez and Michael, like, all of that money, I'm getting paid for my lectures. That's great. And I'm getting paid, no complaints on what I'm getting paid, but you're watching like what equity or what owning, getting stakes in a business is.
Yeah.
And it's a different level. It's a different level. And it was the first time I talked to him. Money doesn't drive me, but when you're not driven by money and you realize you're getting closer to the end of your career and you don't think you have enough to be able to make sure that you're going to live the way you want to live, I'm like, I got to start making a better plan and a better exit plan. And when you have two people that you have worked your tail off for, that you trust with every ounce of blood that you have in your body, and they say that, they've left their companies and like, we think this is one of the best, most important things we're ever going to do business wise in our career. They start throwing out legacy and things like that. I'm like, when you ask me to be a founding member of that, how do you say no? At least how do I say no? When I told you community, my dental family is my why. Those guys have been my why and have saved me in my darkest times. Like, let me at least hear your story and let me hear your why of why you're doing this. And when it made sense, there was no proof of concept at all. It was me, Mina, and Michael Snyder. Michael was number one, and then I was number two in theory. Like, me and Mina were two, but I am ahead of him, and it's one of the funniest stories in the history of our company. But but I am, and I remind him of that all the time, by the way. And he said, yeah, Sam Bowie was number two and Michael Jordan was number three. That's always come back. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You can't play in the NBA, neither can I, so that doesn't hold water.
That's
So
right.
we're good. But yeah, so that's how I ended up really deciding that I trust in them enough, and they were putting enough of their own personal stake in that I was willing to do that with mine, and I did. And I mean, I'm 4.5 years in, and when I say I have zero regrets, I have zero regrets in where I'm at.
So something that resonated with me when we were talking about this is how did it actually impact the practice? You were sitting at this one place and now you're sitting at somewhere else. Kind of tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, it's, when you start talking about, again, and this is not here, there's some really good DSOs out there. So I'm not here to like, and there's certain private equity that's good, but in the grand scheme of things, they're trying to aggregate it, they're trying to flip. It's a
Sure.
different animal.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that stuff. So it's just the partners of the private equity, so to speak. We fund it with a couple of with the monies from the original founders and stuff, but that's about it. And so um and you're thinking like I want to grow. I think, I mean, if I can't grow physically because I'm
Sure.
stuck at my height, I stopped growing in fifth grade. So
Mhm.
I envision myself in a much bigger practice than what I was sitting in, even from a square footage wise. And this one of, you get out there in the world and you meet a lot of people when you do what we do. And one of my good friends in my town was losing his lease. And
Mhm.
came to me and he said, "Hey, I'm losing my lease. I'm not ready to retire yet." He's about 10 years older than me. And we do want to merge practices. Now, we didn't have enough time he only had a couple of months until the lease was up. So I said, "Well, I don't know how long you're going to be working. Why don't I just give you your exit number now and you can
Mhm.
work for me and do that, and you can leave literally whenever you want." But if I make a great environment for him and make it still feel as if he's my partner, which that's how we look at things. I mean, where he's a
Mhm.
seasoned, tremendous dentist and an even better guy. Um, I just figured that let's see if we can go that route, and that's what we did. We merged. I say we merged. I bought him out, but people look at us as partners, and that's how I
Partners.
look at it. And because he was losing his lease, and my square footage was 1,200 square feet. Imagen helped me buy the practice. So we did that. They went through all the due diligence and the financing. We did all that. And then we needed to look for a space. So they put somebody on the task for me while I was working full time and lecturing full time. And we found a space, got a great lease. They hired somebody to negotiate it for us. When I tell you, I didn't have to really do anything except sit with my designer and kind of pick out what I wanted and make sure the architect layout was how I wanted it.
Mhm.
After that, it was really not a lot in my hands. I just could kind of do my thing. And when I needed to be there, I was, but a lot of it, we had somebody handling it for us, which was amazing. And then we built a 7,300 square foot, 17 op practice that we equipped 12 for right now. And we'll be every other year, we'll equip two more for the next couple of years. And
Mhm.
then hopefully, my associates will take that over and it will be theirs and they'll take the practice from me and take it into a much different strata than even I have. And we've grown it almost, at 2.5, almost 3 times since from when I sold or
Mhm.
partnered. So it's a big, and it's only 4 years. I mean, when I think about that kind of growth, it's insanity.
Well, and it's amazing that you say that. Yeah, because I think about, how would I do it? And you start looking at, do I acquire a practice? Do I find a practice? Now, do I find a facility? Do I do X, Y, and Z? For you being able to say that, basically you walked in and you went to whoever it is and they did it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the amazing piece of it. If it makes financial sense and it makes, long-term career sense and somebody else does it, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I figured that, when I partnered, I was 50 years old. I just
Mhm.
51 maybe somewhere. So let's say I partnered in 2020. So yeah, I was just about to turn 51 when I partnered. It was like a week before. So I knew that I had 10 years in me, even with the way our thing is created, you get your maximum multiplier on your EBITDA at 10 years. So I knew I was giving it 10 years because I wanted the max money on what I was going to do. That was for sure. And so I was about 3 years in when I built this. Now I've pushed back my 10 years I just want the note on this practice paid off so I don't have any debt on me. So I'm going to go until
Mhm.
I'm 64. So I got 8.5 years left.
Sure.
Hmm.
But to be able to have like I certainly have vision and I have drive. I will try to outwork anybody, including anyone on my team. I try to set the standard there. But um I just want to be able to have somebody in the background that's way smarter than me that can look at those numbers, see if buying that practice was a smart move. I came up with the idea in my head, gave it to one of our VPs, and she's like somebody that I look at, Alicia Kiefer, as somebody that I she's one of the most incredible minds that I've ever been around in dentistry, yet also fun as hell and just one of my closer friends. And I just
Mm-hmm.
believe in her always with I can come to her with something and she's mathematically gifted like that and
Mm-hmm.
understands how to set up a practice. So she's like, this is not a dumb idea. Let me dive into this a little bit more. And within a couple of days, they're like, let's bring him in and let's try to get this going. And within a couple of months, it was done. And I was like, oh my God, I just went from having a $1.9 million practice to a $3 million practice overnight. This is crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out the logistics of bringing two teams in together and how to make that harmonious and doing that. And that's where I think doing it at the age I did, I was such a better leader. Even 4 years into my Imagen or 3 years into my Imagen, I was such a better leader than I was even before partnership because I can get all of the busy work out of my way
Mm-hmm.
and focus on leading people rather than managing a business, which I still do to an extent, but great office manager, great Imagen team lets me kind of focus on the things I like to cherry pick and not the things that I can't stand, like QuickBooks and payroll and all the shit that drives me crazy.
Yeah. So, what's an average week like for you in the practice now?
I'm there 3 days a week. So I have four GPs that are there. Me and the guy whose practice I merged with are 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday. My associates split a half day on Monday and then they work Tuesday through Friday. And then the guy who I merged with, his wife works 1 day a week. She also teaches at the hygiene school. So she's
Mm-hmm.
there 1 day, loves aligners, really like super gifted and talented with aligners. So that's kind of what she focuses on in the practice. And then we have an endodontist 1 day a week. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
so it's and I have two surgical suites, so I bring in outside surgical people if we're doing all on fours with anesthesiologists and stuff. So it's just a busy. I mean, there's including all the docs, there's 26 of us, including me. So
Wow.
it's humming. It's always run around. There's always music playing. There's always laughing in the office. I tell my team that when I interview them that I'm 96% fun and 4% asshole. And just and here's what makes me tiny angry. And so I list there's really only two things. I don't do late and I don't do drama. And when there is drama, we try not to go home angry. So I try to fix things. And now I have like an absolute people whisperer as my office manager who's my fixer for everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just have this really wonderful, harmonious family for a big practice like that. You don't generally see the culture that we have. And I focus on that pretty heavily to make sure that my team feels heard, loves coming into work every day, and wants to grow. I mean, that's an important part of what we do is, I need some worker bees in there because the place needs to be fed.
So Sam made a statement when we had him on that you got to surround yourself by people smarter than you, and if you do that, then you're forced to rise to the top. You're forced to be successful. You've kind of alluded to that in this that you did the same thing. If you're a doc who's been out for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, how do you tell a doc to do that? How do you find that?
Yeah, it is, I tell people even in my lectures at CDOCS, I talk about the importance of getting on the boards and finding all those people that speak the same language you do. You're making this big investment. You might as well surround yourself with people who are where you're at, or even hopefully for you, way better than where you are. You're going to find mentors right there at your fingertips at your computer. And then when you come back to campus, you'll find them, or when you come to events, you'll find them, and there you already have your built-in community. So I think a lot of it with all of these, don't be afraid to post, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how you're going to meet people.
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I think putting yourself out there, it's a hard thing for people to do, but that's how you're going to find those. Like that's I'm social as hell, so I don't, for me it was always pretty easy. But I also think that people have to want to be mentored. And that's
Yeah.
a big thing, if you are somebody that thinks you know it all. I mean, one of my favorite
Mhm.
lines when people come in and they've been doing CERIC for 12, 15 years and they leave my class 2 days. I just had it happen this past weekend saying, I can't believe how much I learned in 2 days when I thought we basically make people try to go through level 2 if you haven't been to a course before, even if you've taught, because you probably taught yourself bad habits, and we have all the
Sure.
systems that'll make it easy for you. So let us do that. So when you take our other courses, you're not like left behind because you think you only know what you know,
Right.
and that goes for young dentists too. And I think with all of this information at your fingertips, you think that you know it all, but reading and then performing are two different things, and sometimes just having conversations like we're having today is such a more granular way to sort of be able to acquire. Maybe it's just the way I learn and I shouldn't speak across the board, but I find that it just, you know, it feeds something for me specifically. But I think if young dentists would learn to sort of take a little constructive criticism, Safa, you saw that post that I put on your site today when I was watching ESPN. I thought that was a
Yep.
great. Did you watch it?
Yeah,
Did you watch
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
I thought it was a great clip when he talked about kind candor,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and a way to talk to people in a way. I'm from the East Coast. I call that a shit sandwich, which is you say something nice about them and then you pound them with the meat of the sandwich and you
Yeah.
finish with something really nice. So they walk out of there like I don't know if I got slapped in the face or kissed on the lips,
Yeah.
and maybe both of them were needed, So I think that's the important thing. And that's, I think, what he was talking about. And I think what a lot of business people don't understand, how to run an office properly and be able to resonate with your team or
Yeah,
your other docs.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. So kind of one thing that we always search for, how do you guide people? So I'm gonna ask you a few different questions. What's your advice for a doc who's been out for 5 years?
My advice for a doc who's been out there 5 years is listen before you talk. I think that's an important one for a lot of people, because those of us that have been doing it a long way, I have two associates that have been out less than 5 years. I have one who is way more confident than the other. They're both, I mean, I can't tell you how much I love my two associates. I'm very blessed to have these two because they care so much about their patient pool and they're so good about taking constructive criticism. One is a little more passive, I'll say, than the other, but not in a bad way. Just, she just needs a little bit more confidence. He's got it kind of built in to his DNA, but they both, we had he had a tough case the other day that I ended up having to redo, and he was beating himself up. And I just told him, I said, I have screwed up more cases than you've actually done in your career. So,
That's true.
Yeah.
you're at the beginning part of what you're doing. I always, we hear the thing, they call it the practice of dentistry for a reason, so listen to that and, listen to me when I'm trying to walk you off the ledge a little bit to make you know that, we're luckily in the grand scheme of what we do, we don't generally do anything harmful to patients that is going to do something like traumatic, like death and things like that. I mean, listen, there's always crazy stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, we're a pretty safe profession. And so, but we can really change lives a lot. But you got to be careful with what you're doing because you can get yourself in a really tough spot. And so you got to learn, so 5 years out, be listen before you talk sometimes and learn how to take constructive criticism because, that's where you need to learn it. The humility and those words of wisdom are paramount in those 5 years.
So let's go to the more seasoned doc. That the doc who's been out 10 years. Now they think they know everything. What's your advice for that doc?
I feel like that's a targeted question, being the guy who's been out 10 years.
I've been out. I don't know. I've been out a whole hell of a lot more than 10 years.
Yeah. No,
So-
for me.
No, yeah, you're out 10 years.
Yeah,
So-
I've been out a hell of a long longer than that.
So I would say for the 10-year, once I'm there, at that point, you either are on your own at that point or you're working for someone. You at that point should find the person that you want to mentor you, that gives you the opportunity to lift you up into where you want to be. And my suggestion, you started making money at that point, just like we start talking about saving money. Like I love Sonny's Dell Investment Group. You learn a lot from managing money and other things. And I talk about budgeting, and you not only should you budget for your savings and your retirement and all the big things you're doing, but you should be budgeting for education and trying to take, I mean, I teach hundreds of hours of education every year, but I probably take 75 plus hours a year also on
Mm-hmm.
top of doing it because I love what I'm doing and I want to be great at it and I want to be able to pass that knowledge down to whoever's behind me. And so at that 10-year, you should be really trying to figure out what do you love doing and how much are you willing to invest to be the best at that for your patients, your community, that kind of stuff. So that's where I would be in the 10-year for myself.
And then I think the age that I call decision time, 20, 22 years out. You've had your run for building your practice, all that stuff's going on, debts retired, all that stuff. What's your advice there? What is your advice at decision time?
Oh, see, for me, that's kind of easy because it's the part of my life that I'm the most proud of out of everything that I'm doing with education, with partnership with Imagen, with it's just learn how to be a great leader. A great leader isn't somebody, and I learned this a couple of months ago, really hardcore when I finally got like, I've had office managers in my office and they've all been fine, but as my practice has gotten bigger, the amount of people who can run what we are building and continuing to grow is that you're looking for like a unicorn type of a person to be able to do that. It's not somebody that is a great assistant or a great front desk person that you think you're just going to promote up. You got to find that right person. And I found my unicorn, for sure. And I think having that person, that right person to be able to help you and learning how to be a leader. And that, again, that means taking stuff off your plate and trusting the people, training up the people around you to be great, to take over the things that you think only you can do. The only thing in your office that you're the only one that can do is the dentistry, especially if you're a single practitioner. Other than that,
Mm-hmm.
everyone can do everything in your office.
Yeah.
Everyone, so get them, people in your office want to do more. They don't want to, as my cousin, my assistant Connie way back in the day, used the phrase, when we started doing CEREC and doing things, she was polishing and staining glaze. She goes, I don't feel like a glorified spit sucker anymore. And, you don't realize what you bring to the table to these people from a job satisfaction standpoint. Everyone talks about hygiene and the amount of money you have to pay everybody. And I'm not saying you don't people don't deserve what they deserve, but sometimes the ask is out of control. And just because it says it on the internet doesn't make it true or that's what
Right.
you should be doing. And I have found through leadership that people are willing to take a little bit less, what I would call a reasonable salary, when you offer great leadership, a great home for them to work in, and the opportunity to bonus up to hit those numbers. If you're performing, we share, that kind of a thing, and
Sure.
learn
Yeah.
just that great leader that, where everybody wants to train themselves up to be great and not just me. I have to set the standard, but I always say when it comes to culture in your practice, I set it, but my team defends it to the nth degree, and that's where at our age, that's what we should be doing is like
Mhm.
you know planning your exit a little bit, but learning how to be an incredible leader instead of a boss.
So I've always had I've always, something you said, I've always had a bonus plan in my office, and you wanted to do it to incentivize people. What would you say is a if you were going to advise a tenure doc, what's a good structure for a bonus?
Oh, so I mean, we have one that we use with our company, which I think is okay. I don't love it. I
Mhm.
actually help bring our original bonus system, which is my favorite one, honestly.
Mhm.
We have one where we just have our growth numbers for the year. We figure out what the monthly goal is. We figure out how many days we're going to work. So we break it up by weekly. And if we hit weekly goals, everybody gets, let's say $100. Every week you hit it. And then at the end of the month, if you hit it, you get another. So they can make some decent money doing that. We have separate hygiene goals for that kind of stuff. But the system that I got was from Productive Dentist Academy. I'll give the
Mhm.
Chris Yuen, was my coach. She was outstanding. Gave me the poker chip bonus. You guys ever use that one?
I have not.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. So you figure out how many employees you have. You get like nice poker chips in a non-see-through bag. So it's got to be like a jet black bag that
Yeah.
nobody gets, a hard one that you can shake around. And so you put 80% of the chips or $10 chips, 15% or $25, and 5% or $50. So depending on how many people you have will determine how many days a week you're working. So let's say we have 25 people. If everybody was going to pick, let's say everybody worked for 4 straight days, I have to have, 25 times 4. I have to have 100 chips in there. So I'd have, 75 or 80% of them would be tens,
Yeah.
15% would be that. And so let's say our goal, my goal right now for my office is 16,800 for this month a day. So let's say that that's my goal. If we hit it, if we did the old bonus, everybody that worked that day reaches into the bag like during the morning huddle and picks out their chip, and they have no idea what they're getting, and we record it. So if you get a 10, everyone's like, oh, 10. You get a 25, everyone can say, you get a 50, you thought you just won the $1 billion. They go wild. Okay. Now so day 2, same goal. Okay. Let's say we hit it. We have a great day. You hit it, 20 grand. Okay. Awesome. End of the morning huddle. Everybody who worked that day, if you work both days, you pick 2 chips. If you only worked one of that second day, you pick that 1 chip. So you say you didn't work Monday, but you worked Tuesday, you pick 1. Now, because we're tying it to streaks and it goes up to 4 days. So on day 3, when you start getting, you look at the morning huddle, we always talk numbers. So let's just say we're only scheduled to 16.9. We're only $100 over that. Well, if anybody doesn't do a fluoride or anybody, did I lose you guys?
No.
Okay. And let's say that, like we got fluoride on the schedule or somebody's supposed to do sealants or whatever. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, or I got to cancel the appointment. They want to pick 3 chips. So they're doing everything in their power to try to keep those people on the schedule. So, or the team's like, hey, this person last time they're here and during the morning huddle was really talking about whitening. Maybe we talk about whitening again to them and see if they're interested, and we can take scans and do that. So we're trying to find same day treatment. Then all of a sudden you hit day 3 and you pick it. Now you pick a 50, a 25, and now all of a sudden we're starting to talk good money every day.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's really fun. And then at the end of 4 days, if you hit it 4 in a row, you go back to 1 chip. And then you do that. And in a 3-month span, if you hit that, then your goal number is too low because it's too easy to hit it more than 50% of the time. And you have to put the number up a little higher. And so as you continue to grow and do it, your number continues to escalate as the office continues to escalate. And it just makes it fun for everybody. I love that. It's a great system. And I credit Bruce Baird and all the guys at PDA that came up with it. It's terrific.
That's pretty fun. It's not like gambling on the golf course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's and like I know Mina, I gave Mina that bonus. His team, they pick out 1 for the whole team. And he said, doesn't your team get mad if one gets a 10? And like, that's the fun of the pick.
That's
like,
right.
Yeah.
Fun is like, or whatever, and you're waiting to see. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, we write on a calendar or a sheet and we add it up, and then they get a paycheck and then they get a separate bonus check. So this way, when they are trying to figure out, hey, I want to raise or this and that, and they're just looking at their number, I'm like, this is profit sharing. Let's see what your hourly really was. And I can show them, hey, you made $4,800 last year in bonus. Like this is like $5 an hour, whatever it is, So that way the separation of it allows you to help with them seeing the trueness of what you're trying to do for them.
I'm going to ask you a couple last questions. If you had to describe a mistake that, we always make mistakes, and I think that's the introspection of that is what makes us better. If you had to describe a mistake that you made that you learned from that advanced your career, what would that be?
So the mistake, I'll call it a mistake. In hindsight, it wasn't. But my biggest mistake was buying my first office. I came from a practice that I did wisdom teeth. I did endo, like even second molar upper endo. He taught me to place implants. I did Invisalign, and I moved to the wealthiest suburb in Illinois, and somebody had an injury. I bought the practice for what I thought was pennies on the dollar. And I did not do my due diligence to understand that there was no land to build in this place, no homes to be built. And basically 8 to 10 new people a month moving into this town that had already had 18, or I think we had 19 dentists, and there were 17,000 people in my town. So, and then if you combine the town that I'm in now, which is Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, say there's 23,000, and we probably have 20 something dentists in there. There is, so half the people who buy houses there already live there. They're just buying a bigger house. So my mistake was not doing enough due diligence to realize the expense it would take to get me where I needed to be. And demographics is key. I'm right up against Lake Michigan. So half of my radius to market was fish, and they don't
Yeah.
exactly, come in and pay anything. So that was hard. So I think my biggest mistake was not spending the money when I was making one of the biggest investments and choices in my life on somebody that understood transitions and demographics and stuff. I should have hired an expert and I didn't. It ended up working out, but it took 9 years of like financial turmoil and me working 40 weekends a year on the road to rob Peter to pay Paul to make it work.
Well, Rich, thanks, man. Thanks so much for joining us. One thing we always like to talk about and kind of end things on is, dentistry is a hard profession. How would you try to simplify it? What's a take home from you for our listeners?
Okay, so I like it. I'm going to do this because it's the most current thing on my mind. Okay, we talk.
Okay.
I think mental health and physical health, when I talk about, is really important. So people, we have a hard. We have high suicide rate and addiction rates and all that. So people should not fear talking to somebody professionally to be able to get them into a more healthy state mentally. When you're healthy there, you're in a great space. The other thing that I think are to simplify dentistry is taking care of yourself. I am right now, just before I came on this podcast, I've been having an issue with like radiating nerve pain down my right arm from if I put my head between the like 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock position, I can make my fingers numb. And so ergonomics and taking care of your body and your core and doing all these things will simplify a lot of things for you. I laugh because I always make the joke I'm so short that I go from neck to ass. I don't even have a back, so how can I have back problems? But take care of yourself, make it a point early, because when you're 55 and you're trying to deal with it, I got to go pick up a prescription for gabapentin today to take the edge off before my MRI in a couple of weeks. Like I wish I would have done a better job of simplifying. That would have simplified a lot of things for me if I would have thought about the core of who I am, which is making sure my mind is good and healthy, because it's going to leak into your family and your kids and all your relationships, and making sure your body is healthy so you can do what you're doing at a high level for a really long time. I think I think we lose sight of that a lot, and I think it's something that we should focus on. And I think dental school should make a more important part of focusing on that, because it will simplify a lot of other things for you going forward.
That's great. So timely and a great thing to think about, that none of us, we all think about the other things about dentistry, the work stuff. We don't, practice owners and practice builders, we're terrible at taking care of ourselves and all the other stuff. So that's great. It's a great reminder.
Yep. Thank you very much. The big Punjabi, I would like to call Sam, was saying that what I needed to give you grief about is your height, but you jumped right into it yourself.
Yeah.
So.
You take that one off the table.
See, here's the thing. So I'm smart because I do like to bust balls. I told you that. So
Yeah.
what I do is I cast the first thing. Number one, what that does is diffuses the situation, because if I'm willing to make fun of myself, you have to find something else to make fun of me for.
Yeah.
That's number two. The second thing is, if you bite, that just opens the door to give me permission to come at you with everything I have, and you don't really want that.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
so I'm testing the waters with that first one to see where it is. And I always say, I laugh with Sam, like Sam, whenever I'm in Scottsdale and I'm teaching there, Sam will pick me up, we'll do dinner or something like that. So he'll come up, he's like, "Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "Oh, my Uber Brown is here. I got to go."
That is hilarious. Well, thanks again, Rich. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Hope our listeners get as much out of this as I did. We look forward to you guys all being a part of Simplified Dentistry.
Hey, I appreciate it a lot. As I said, Sam said it on the earlier podcast. I really enjoy the tempo and the sort of the cadence of what you guys do and how you look into this stuff and all the pre-interviews you do. I think it's great. You bring great topics to it, and I the fact that I'm on here shocks me. So I appreciate the fact that you thought it was worth the while to do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm always around, and for between Imagen and CDOCS, I look forward to seeing some of the folks that listen to this. And if you have questions, you can always hit me up at Rich Rosenblatt at Gmail. With any questions, if stuff we brought up alongside that you may have a question on bonus systems, anything. I'm here to chat if anybody needs it.
Absolutely.
Great, man. Thanks
thank
so
you very
much,
Rich.
Guys, thank you so much. It was a real absolute pleasure and honor.
All right,
We
thanks
appreciate
again.
it.